And I guess with that, we will start. Welcome. This is the Security Area Advisory Group. With your two ADs, 2.5 ADs. I see Roman walking into the room as well. So as some people know, Roman is now the IETF chair. He used to be the security AD. And as a new security AD, we have Deb Cooley replacing him. To note well, if you have any questions or concerns about IPR, about working group processes, anti-harassment procedures, code of conduct, please, you should have read this by now. I know this, but behave nicely and disclose everything. And if you have concerns, talk to your lawyer. Living the IETF code of conduct, a reminder, we all should treat each other with respect and be nice to each other. And really talk about the topics and not so much talking about the person themselves and doing personal attacks. I want to stress one point. When some chairs show an equivalent of this slide, they add the context of, I know this is not a problem in this working group. Please do not do that, because if there is an issue in your working group and people are feeling harassed or otherwise bothered, then saying that there's no problem whatsoever really disenfranchises the people who think that there is a problem. So please, as a working group chair, don't do this. I know it's easy to do. I've also made the mistake in the past, but please be careful when saying this. And so if you have issues with either people or the chairs, you can come up the chain. If you have problems about participants, you can go to the chair. If you've got problems with the chair, you can go to the AD. If you have problems with the AD, you can go to the chair. And in all cases, you can also go to the ombudsman. So there's various ways where we can try and put things back into the right on the right track. Meeting tips: be sure to sign into the session with MeetEcho so we get proper rooms. Please do not try to stream video of this meeting if you're in the meeting. If you're remote, please use good audio tools so that we don't have feedback and other issues with audio video. And please turn the audio video off when you're not speaking. The agenda, we're here at the agenda bashing part. We'll do a quick working group and AD reports. We have a talk from Eric and some discussions, and then we have open mic. So we have a lot of time. So if there's any other things you want to raise, there should be plenty of time for that. So then first, I want to thank Roman for doing a great job running the security area for a while. You can see some statistics which he desperately tried to mess up in the week right here by doing more work, even though he should be preparing to be a chair. But he has done 100 RFCs. He's basically guided through the process 100 RFCs, which is like I think the second best record if I calculated the statistics right. So bravo, Roman. 192 ballots of disgust. This is why people don't like security people. But he did close down 6 working groups. Unfortunately, he started 14, so I'm not sure if that's good statistics. So as a small token of appreciation, we didn't really know what to get you. I mean, you get a giant plaque, which is always really nice to have behind you for your conference calls. So we got you a little Raspberry Pi with a display that you can do all kinds of cool stuff with. And it comes with specifically kit instructions on how things actually work.
I thought the thank you was now you have to be chair because the area runs itself. Really, kind of thanks for the kind word, Paul. It's been my pleasure helping, some little part help you really kind of do the work that you're doing. The security area is a tough area because it's both working groups, working on specific ComSec protocols, operational kind of practices, the kind of the crypto kind of elements, the endpoint kind of pieces. But we're also really a service to the rest of the IETF to make sure they also kind of do that right. And so it's inherently difficult. So again, the work that you do, it really is making the internet better. It's making the enterprise also kind of better. So thank you kind of for that. And I really appreciated the opportunity to work with you on that.
That's your responsibility.
No, you can make the internet work even more secure, right? Is that our new slogan? Making the internet even more secure? Welcome Deb as our new security AD. I'm not sure if you want to have a short speech or if you just want to hand wave or throw your dot.
Oh, I can throw the dot. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's late. It's very late.
Okay. Well, thanks for staying up. You shouldn't really be here anymore. It's really appreciated. So for those working groups chairs that are wondering where things have landed, this is the slide where you can see where your working group landed, but you probably saw some data tracker emails shooting by on Wednesday. So if there's any questions on this, feel free to contact us. If you would like to move under a different AD, we could also talk, but this is probably the way we roughly want to keep it. Working group chair changes since IETF 118. We got the Spice WAF that happened. We got the DOLT had the first working group meeting. Tigris is a working group that closed. Unfortunately, they mostly closed because the people involved didn't seem to be able to cooperate in any way, in any constructive way that was compatible with IETF process for how we do things, and so work kind of stalled there. It's a bit sad to see that. There's a few groups in recharging. Working group chair changes. Some people who have left because they became an AD, so they had to be replaced by other people. We've got some new chairs on the adult group, and some people moved on to other things, other greener lands, and we've managed to find replacements for them so far. Helping out, if you're interested in becoming a working group chair, always let your ADs know. Experience is not always a plus. People skills are a plus. You can also become a document shepherd. That is actually a great way of learning things. You get to learn about following the working group for history, for what people do, how documents are supposed to move forward. And again, your other chairs and your ADs are always welcome to help you and assist you. I'm seeing someone in the queue, so go ahead, Hannes.
Oh, cool, thanks. Paul, I want to touch on one thing that on the first item here. I watched the recording of the last IETF SAAG meeting because I couldn't attend. And I was, Chris was coming to the mic and also was saying something along those lines like, be a chair, you don't need any experience, all is great, as long as you have good motivation, everything is cool. I'm not sure that's enough. Because after all, you have a bunch of people who invested a lot of time and money, resources, etc., into bringing the work here, creating a group, doing something. And so chairing groups is not easy. It's not just the personalities involved, but it's also understanding the ecosystem, which is often complicated. It's not just reading a document. You need to understand like how the different forces and the incentives of the different players work out. Of course, you have help from the group, but you need to make a judgment on like what goes in the right direction, what not. So I understand that it's challenging to get chairs to volunteer for that type of work, or people to volunteer for that. But I don't think we should really communicate and say like, oh, you can do it. It will be fine. Because I've seen disastrous working groups, and we even have today disastrous working groups where I get really upset about the chairs because they block and delay my work for months and years, just because nobody does something. Nobody wants to then go forward and push chairs away. It's because it's our friends and we like them, and otherwise, but it drags on the work, and so that's why I want to just say that on the mic. And
Okay, no, that's definitely a fair comment. We do try to take that into consideration and look at replacing people when needed. But yeah, no, those comments are fair.
Paul Hoffman, disagreeing with some of what Hannah said, because we have in the IETF a real problem of we have too few people who have chair experience, and that the number of people who have been chairs for literally over a decade is very high. So I would in fact push back and say it's okay if you really have just the personality stuff and obviously some subject matter expertise. And if something happens like Hannah's described, where there are working groups that, where the chairs are just doing a really bad job, take it to the ADs. The ADs are responsible for the chairs. Sometimes ADs assign people who are chair mentors, for example, to help with situations like that. We're having a situation in the IETF where if you want to be a chair, like if forming a new working group, they say, oh, use an old chair and a new chair. That only creates one new chair, and that doesn't happen very often. So I would in fact say this is okay if the ADs will either step in directly or send mentorship.
Right. And just to combine those two topics, if you have a problem with a chair, please do come to the ADs, and please come like sooner rather than later, right? We cannot replace a chair within 1 week. Like we do not have a can of people that we just like open another one. So it takes time to replace someone. So please come to us early, and this is all like it's going to be done in confidence. No worries there. Wes?
Wes Hardiker, ISI. There are 3 important features that a chair has to have. They don't have to have all of them. They have to have the combination of chairs have to have all of them. 1, they have to have domain expertise. 2, they have to understand the IETF process and how it works. And 3, they have to have motivation. I have 2 awesome co-chairs right now that did not have IETF experience. They have far more motivation than I do. I've been around too long. I'm like, I wait until next week, right? And one of them has, much better domain expertise than I do, and the other one we probably share it. But the combination has worked really, really well, and they're getting awesome chair experience. One was only in the IETF for 2 meetings before recruited as a co-chair. She's doing awesome.
I would like to add 2 things to what Wes said. Time. Life changes, and then suddenly you have no time anymore, but you don't realize that that's a problem. And the other thing is conflict of interest. And that's a big thing in the working groups. If you are the chair of the group and the author of most of the documents, how can you be really sort of the shepherd of the group? In some cases, to make it worse, some chairs are even the author of patents of some of the documents and of the working group. So that gets really tricky.
Right. So we really try our best to make sure that those positions don't happen at the start. So like when we assign a new chair, there's definitely not going to be a person that has like 10 documents outstanding for the group. But of course, over time, things change, and people might pick up documents, and then that situation might occur. But at that point, that's a really good motivation to see if we can replace that chair. So if you feel that that's valid somewhere in your working group and we missed it, please contact us, and we will look at doing that, because like we do want to avoid those conflict of interest. Okay, then next item, errata processing. That's also a really good method of learning things. You get to go back and look into history and find out new problems, old problems that hasn't been solved before. And it is really useful for the ADs to actually get people to send us emails saying this errata should probably close with this or this comment. We obviously try to do these erratas ourselves as well, but sometimes we do need the experts in the working group to make sure that as an AD we're not making a mistake in closing the erratas. We'll get back a little bit on erratas later in the deck. And as well, attending the virtual in-person BOFs. BOFs are always very interesting because we're trying to get the scope right, we're trying to get the topics right, we're trying to get that people to work together, and that's actually I think orders of magnitude harder than actually doing the working group where the chart is already very well defined. So those are really interesting places to be. You might have noticed that for BOFs, we also try to get very experienced chairs that know how to lead a meeting, that have like lots of experience in both in process and in chairing. Yeah, those positions are in a way even harder to fill to get the right chairs for that. Then we get to the working group summaries. For some people haven't been in the last 2 meetings, we used to go do them one by one. We don't do that anymore. We just ask people that have very interesting things for the group to say to now maybe step on the mic and say so. So if you want to talk about something really positive or really negative, please come to the mic. Otherwise, please send your summaries of what happened either this week or what happened between the last IETF and this IETF to the list. Last time I thought about to stop doing that, but there was actually quite some feedback from people who said, like, sometimes I miss a lot of meetings, and actually these sort of wrap-up short, one-page emails are a really excellent way of catching up on things I missed. So please do them again. So that's why I again started sending out the request for sending these to the list.
I wanted to say a few words about the OWASP working group. We had 2 meetings already. There's one upcoming at the next session. And the interesting thing there is that we are currently, or it seems, working on a couple of certificate revocation mechanism, but in this case, certificate is a JWT. It's sort of a new encoding of a certificate in some sense, and you see the same also in the BOF that we had, the SPICE BOF, where we, with verifiable credentials as a technology, we are kind of, for me, it's like a certificate in a different format, defining it again. So that's, I think, where we can get some experience from other working groups, long-running working groups, and then incorporate that as we sort of design these 2 new credential formats again. So that would be an area where other groups could really help us and make a difference. We have also some work on cross-domain OAuth, which to me looks a lot like Kerberos cross-realm authentication. So there, similar problems have emerged, and how do I get authorization context and authentication context from one domain to the other one? So there could be also interesting or knowledge transfer into another working group.
Thanks. Wes?
Wes Hardiker, ISI again. I did want to bring up, so my 2 groups on this list didn't meet. The Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, SATP, is in the process of going through last call on their first document. This is a lot of people that do not have a huge amount of IETF experience. It looks like a really well-written document. It's fairly high level. My ask is that people do take a look at it, especially because there are less people from the IETF in general, and make sure you think it looks good, especially from a security perspective. It's sort of a hybrid working group that spans both SAAG and it's technically in the app area, right? I think you'd think I'd know that being the working group chair, right? But point being, A, be nice to them, but B, do give it a good, thorough review. I'd like a lot of eyes on this one if possible.
Thank you. No other working groups? All going smooth? Okay. Then we have another non-SEC area related activities. These are just the working groups that you might want to have a peek at to see what kind of interesting security things happening there. I see that SET-P, which originally was not in security, but now is in security, still listed there. So we'll fix that on the next iteration of the slide. If anyone has any other things missing here, please let us know.
Paul Hoffman from ICANN, which is not listed as externally related, but should be. There's a bunch of people in this room who are HSM geeks, And ICANN uses probably is the most visible use of HSMs in the world, while watching them for the DNSSEC key signing key. We are changing HSMs next month in a public ceremony. So if you like watching people touching an HSM for the first time, in a real live situation, you should look that up on the web. It will be a live ceremony and such like that. But they're not only they've switched HSMs in the past, they're switching HSM vendors. So new stuff there.
Are you also live destroying the old HSMs?
No, we stopped doing that. The first time we tried to destroy an old HSM, we brought in like a machine and things like that, and the machine couldn't crush the right parts, and things were flying all over. So they now ruin them, and show that it's ruined, and then they take them off someplace and destroy them, and they keep a bag of it. But trying to do that live turned out to be not a good idea.
Thank you.
Is there still a video of that, Paul?
This is Paul Hoffman from ICANN. When you say ICANN, you think transparency. We've got all the old videos. We've got all the old scripts and such like that. So yes. So if you look under IANA.org, root operations, I don't remember the exact thing, but under DNSSEC root key stuff, you can see the videos from every ceremony back to 2010 when we signed the root for the first time.
So when I finish drinking through the fire hose, I'll go look.
We added 2 new non-working group mailing lists, SKEX one on symmetric keys and, oh,
Can you
sorry.
go back one? I think you can drop perk because I think it's closed.
Oh,
Just
right.
review the list. Yeah, just
Okay,
knock out
yeah,
the ones that
yeah.
are closed.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, Charles Eckel, maybe not meant to be an exhaustive list, but on the external related, I think 3GPP should definitely be there. There's a lot of, I think mostly good stuff where they're looking to reuse leverage a lot of the security stuff we have. So that'd be good to add.
Yeah, that's actually true. And there's a bunch of algorithms probably coming from there towards the IETF as well. So that, yeah, it should definitely be there.
Hi, Justin Richer, freshly upholstered chair of Whimsy over in ART. And so there's the workload identity and multi-system environments. It is going to be a very security heavy conversation that's happening there. But we're in ART because it is also a very vertically focused type of group. And I would very strongly encourage folks from the security community, especially if you're working in sort of cloud deployment type environments, please come join the conversation. We need a lot of security expertise. We will be working closely with the security area in general. I think you're on loan to us in some official capacity or something. It was a new field in Data Tracker that I didn't. Technical advisor, yeah. Thank you. I didn't know that was a thing, but we got one of those. That's awesome, and thank you for that. But regardless, we're going to be. We met for the first time this week, and we will be working a lot in security space in general. So I, will probably be doing readouts in SAAG from time to time, and really encourage everybody to come join the community.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, you're right. They're really closely related. We weren't sure yet where that working was actually going to land, whether it was going to be security or not. So yes, definitely a lot of security related things there. So like I said, there's 2 new mailing lists that's what's set up for from some interest gathering discussions, seeing where things would be going. So join those if you're interested there. Some AD sponsored drafts. The test keys finally got an RFC number. Took a really long time. There was a request for the NTOU Prime SSH to be AD sponsored. Roman initially took this, but then when we got some information, we asked for some feedback from the crypto panel. And basically, the feedback, and it's you can find the link in the presentation. Their feedback was basically, yes, we would have done it like this 15 years ago, but these days we wouldn't do it like this anymore. So we shouldn't really standardize that here either. I think also additionally, since it's in OpenSSH and SSH has namespaces for these things, so there's like an OpenSSH.com namespace where it's already running. So do we really need a code point here or not? So it was decided to drop this from the AD sponsoring list. There's another one related to TLS. This is about, again, the sequence number in the clear instead of in the encrypted part. And that was for hard acceleration, very important. We weren't really sure what to do there. It's initially we thought maybe we should AD sponsor this, but then also it's kind of strange to AD sponsor TLS document when the TLS working group is still running and open. And so there's like, there was a bit of interest and a bit of lack of interest there. So yeah, and a former security AD now at the line, Sean.
And share of TLS, and don't send it back. We already did it. We looked at it, and the group said you can do this, but not here. So there was consensus to not do this work.
Right.
So he pings me every now and again, like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, it was with the AD. So now the ADs need to decide what to do.
Yes. No. So yeah. To clarify, the TLS group didn't say this is bad. They just said we don't care. Actually, they said something along the lines of it's not bad, but we don't care.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's another document from Donald that's been waiting for too long for us to decide on. It's an algorithm that's used a lot by a lot of people outside the IETF, and the question is, if it's used so much outside the IETF, does it really need an RFC number or not? And if we document it, would that mean that we're promoting this in some unofficial way as a strong algorithm, even though it's not a strong algorithm, as the document does clearly tell you that it's not. So yeah, I'll sit down with Deb and figure out what we do with this one. Then we get to the errata processing. I haven't actually checked how we're doing compared to other areas, but based on previous statistics, we were by far the worst. And seeing how we did drop a little bit, we did turn the tide. Thank you, Sean, for your heroic efforts the last 2 weeks of doing TLS ones. We are getting on the right way, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So if you have time, please look at your working group's errata and start closing things down. Otherwise, I will threaten to start using part of the SAAG meeting as a collective errata live attacking meeting.
I know Justin might be getting to say something similar, but you go first. It's busted. The whole errata process is dorked. It is super painful. My advice is if you get a reported errata, jump on it immediately, because you're going to forget in 5 years and you're going to lose context, and it's taking you an hour to figure out what the hell the thing was about. And the whole, like, we have to review it. You can, there's an ISG statement, and like you may have to edit the thing before, and you've got to approve it. And like the ADs are in the
every 3 weeks, I ask some other AD, do you qualify this as hold for document update or verified? Like it is definitely unclear, and I have suggested this as a topic for the next ISG retreat to see about what we can do here.
Yeah, Justin Richer, absolutely. The process is terrible. I actually, after the last meeting, when Roman was like, hey, our errata are terrible, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some time. I'm going to go sit down and go through like often the other working groups, because there's a lot sitting there and I can probably answer a bunch of these. I couldn't find them. And I was told, go back through the email archives and respond to those emails from 10 years ago from a different email address in my case.
Well, I can actually give you the link. In fact, the real problem is, as AD, there's 2 links. One is the public link with the errata, and the other one is the private one where you can verify them. And people send you the public one, and then you go, where's the button to click and edit them? And then you can't find them, and you have to go find it, put it into the other system to actually log in and actually resolve the errata. So yes, there's a lot of things that are really bad with it. Nevertheless, we need to like attack this and reduce this pile of backlog.
Absolutely agreed. My main point is that I truly believe we can address a lot of this with better tooling. Making stuff available. So if I can't find the tooling, it's not good tooling.
No, it's fair that part of it is a tooling, but from an AD point of view, I often actually need to reach out to knowledgeable people inside a working group to confirm something, right? Sometimes these erratas are very subtle, and they're like, it's easy to get wrong for someone who's not like into this topic day to day. And I see Roman.
So I have,
walking
let
to
me
the-
make one,
Sure.
comment. So there is a way to search the archive, the mail archive. If you put the errata number in the mail archive of the working group, if there's any traffic in the working group, it pops up. But it's in the mail archive. Don't use your own version of whatever mail you have, but in the mail
Yeah.
archive you can find it.
It's,
I did
it's
this for
hard-
Acme right after I retired. So 3 days after I retired, I went through all like 16 of Acme's errata, found all of the emails, made a little document and shipped it and said, do this to these. And then they had to find the other link and then they had to blah, blah, blah. So
Right. The
it's crap. Sorry.
yeah, the process that I was told was to reply to the email addresses, and I can't reply to something off of archive. How? Okay, people are telling me that this is actually possible. That's some weird black magic. I don't know. Give me a button.
I did. No, I did that too. Acme was spammed with all 15 messages saying, hey, is this still accurate? Because some of them are old.
Also, recently, actually, the RFC editor is weeding out a bit more of the actual spam. So it's getting a little bit better. Where did where did Roman go? Like, weren't you going to work in the queue?
Eric's next, and then me. Ecker's next, and then under Sean.
Oh, okay. So Ecker.
I was going to decline in favor of the chair, but okay. Yeah, I mean, this truly is like, I think it's well known. I do not think much of the errata as a concept, but they're even more useless in the current structure. So I guess if I may make a sort of advertisement, Farrell and I have been sort of like in a half coordinated kind of fashion, trying to figure out some better way of handling this. If other people, I put some links in the chat. If other people are jazzed about doing something about errata, please do reach out, because I think we could build a critical mass or something that like made things better. And my two, I guess my three statements would be: one, like actually have diffs, not like this ridiculous old new stuff. Two, have it be searchable, and three, have some mechanism that actually like when you run does something. So like when you're pushing the button, it doesn't just flip a bit in a database, but actually people review the document, they see the errata. As I said, I put some links to the document if people in the chat if people are interested.
Like I said, I plan to have this in an ISG retweet item, so I'll definitely talk to you beforehand, and we can talk about this. Thanks.
Hi, I'm not Sean, but I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work to put myself in line. So thank you kind of for Sean. Roman Danilio. So I just wanted to kind of comment on the idea that we could fix the errata with better tooling. I don't have a specific answer, but this has been repeatedly told. Much of the workflow things we have talked about has been repeatedly told to the RPC kind of folks. They do have a plan that I can't explain because they are still working on it to kind of jigger this. So better tooling is in the works. But again, you would have to talk to them to get a better sense of what the roadmap is and the timing. I don't have that. So I just wanted to comment that this is a known issue.
Hi, this is Jan-Fred. I still don't understand the errata process of, okay, I have this thing and now we have to do something with it, but who is actually doing what at what point? And I tried to research it and I couldn't really find something. So is there any point where a relatively newcomer can actually see, okay, this is a flowchart of events that are going to happen to get an errata out of the pending errata?
That's a fair point, and I'll make an action item for myself to actually add some link or information on this slide so that we have it at least from the next meeting on going forward.
So I can help with that because I did it. But then, I mean, somebody has to do the legwork, and then the AD has to do the real, like, make the change work.
Okay, then we've got the security area pointers with links where we will add the errata link. There's some common issues. There's a wiki. Currently, because we just switched ADs, just take a note that so the working groups have been swapped to from Roman to me and or Deb, but some of the documents that are in like past the ISG ballot, they usually tend to stay with the same area director, so they would stay with Roman. Currently, that is not entirely the case because of the switch over on Wednesday, but the secretariat will work on fixing those items. So you might see a lot of things that have been punted onto Deb, but she's not actually getting all of that, and Roman will actually finish the last miles on the things that he's
Yeah,
done.
so kind of clarifying kind of point. So we are in a unique situation with the handoff. For those that have observed AD handoffs before, typically Wednesday night happens in the plenary. Everything that the old AD had, full flush, it now goes to the new incoming kind of AD, and all of that state, all the forward velocity of previous AD reviews and kind of tracking them gets lost. And the new AD has to, in a sense, kind of pick it up, regain the state, potentially do re-reviews. And so this introduces typically weeks of delay. We're in a bit of a unique situation here, given that I'm still on the ISG, so I can in fact hold documents. So I have 11 documents that are after PubRec. So I just want to clarify, it's not in ISG review. It's after PubRec, so some state of AD review or later. And so I'm holding those 11 documents just not to introduce kind of more latency, and I'll drive them to the end.
And so we'll reflect that soon back in the data tracker. That will just be fixed over the next couple of days. Is it? Okay, so
Yeah.
because when I noticed Deb's backlog, there was a lot of backlog for her that were like in PubRec or later.
No, so it's the new data tracker feature that says what didn't you ballot on, and what you didn't ballot on is a different feature of the data tracker. It highlights all the documents that don't have sufficient ballots to pass, and Deb, as the new coming AD, has not had a chance to ballot on them, but it's still going to show that there's not enough. And so those are not SEC area documents. I think that's everyone's documents.
Okay, I think I saw something different, but we'll take it offline. And also the last link shows you what's actually on the next ISG agenda, so you can also see when your document's coming up. And what other related documents are there that you might want to go in. Remember the ISG telechat, the formal chats every other week where we discuss our ballots is open for everyone to join. So feel free to join and listen in on how the sausage is being made. I want to say thanks to all the sector reviewers. There used to be a list here, and I got tired of synchronizing them. In fact, the last IETF 18 list was that of IETF 17 for some reason. I think Roman managed to pull out everybody who actually did a review and put them on a page. So this time I'm just sending you a link to the group. Again, thanks for everybody who is doing sector reviews. I was a bit late with the announcement this week, my apologies, but on every Tuesday of an IETF meeting during lunch, we meet up and we discuss things related to the sector reviewing process and interesting things that are happening related to that. So everybody who is doing sector reviews is invited to join them. The group more or less consists of working group chairs and former working group chairs. So if you just got a new working group assigned for you for the first time in the security area, you will find that you are automatically added to this list of volunteers to do this kind of grateful work. And then I stole some statistics from Tero's slide. So you can see we since last IETF we did 180 sector reviews. Again, these are very useful. The ADs will actually look at that when they're also doing their review and their balloting. So it's really good to have another pair of eyes on it. We're pretty good at reviewing things. A lot of about 50% of the documents are ready. Others have obviously some issues. But if you look at the NITs and ready ones, then we're getting at a pretty 75-80%. So that's pretty good. Then for the completion stats, about half the reviews get done in time. About 3/4 of the review happen at some point later in the time. So we're doing fairly well as well. Tero does some management on there too. So if reviewers get too busy and they don't do their reviews, then he will not assign them anymore in the future. There is a tool, there's an option in the tool where you can mark yourself away. So if you can't review for the next 2 months, you can put that in a tracker so that we skip assigning work to you, and then we don't get more incomplete reviews. And then that was it for the chair slides. So on to our only presentation today is Eric. So Eric, are you still there?
Yes. Just find the button. Right. So, yeah. So, wow, I don't know why this is slide 22. I think this, I took this from another deck, and I guess the numbers are good. Oh, these are yours 22s. Okay. So, basically, this is, I think, a plea for some consistency. So obviously, there's been a lot of motion in the PQ area, and we expect NIST to standardize MLChem like real soon. And the question is, how do we deploy PQ algorithms? There's been a lot of interest, obviously, in standardizing these hybrid PQ traditional algorithms, as they're calling it in PQIP. That probably probably the paradigmatic examples like X25509 plus MLChem 768. There's also X-Wing. There's like a bunch of other variants. So TLS, SSH, and LAMPS are all standardizing some hybrid algorithm. I don't think we have to go into too much detail what these mean. Like largely speaking, you assign a code point, and then the key, and like the public key is like just the other public keys glued together, right? There has been some interest in standardizing PQ algorithms alone. LAMPS has a candidate document, and this CNSA 2.0 kind of like pretty strongly implies that they're not going to want to approve hybrid algorithms at some point in the future. On the other hand, TLS just decided not to standardize pure PQ algorithm. Martin, I didn't notice what Jose and Jose did. I didn't do a complete survey.
Okay. Matt, this is Scott Fleur, Cisco Systems.
Yes.
One comment. I was at the TLS working group, and I do not remember the TLS working group making that decision. And I just went through their notes. I do not see that decision in there either.
Sean, your chair. Did you disagree with my characterization?
Knowing that you have another slide and having read it, the only thing that I was going to point, that I was going to be super pedantic, was that we decided not to do this right now. We can do it later.
Fair enough. Yes,
right? So that's all of the point I wanted to make. We did not make a consensus call to like, who were we going to pick this or not, like all that. We just kind of like went, yeah, we're going to wait because again, the thing's not done. So again, you got another slide, so I'll sit.
Or do you want to talk about Cozy and Jose?
No, Ori Steele, Jose and Cozy haven't, there's no drafts doing anything hybrid. There are drafts doing pure PQ signatures and HPKE stuff. And I gave, along with Mike Owensworth, we gave a presentation at PQIP about hoping for someone else to solve this problem. We'll do whatever comes of that.
Right. So this presentation is entirely about key establishment. We can talk about signatures later, but I think signatures are hard mode, and the key establishment is easy mode, is the thing we're doing right now. Can I have the next slide? So I guess my question is, should we have a consistent practice across the IETF? I think this would be one of either. We should standardize both a PQ-T hybrid and pure PQ, like 2 code points or n code points, or the other is to standardize just the hybrid now and wait on pure PQ. I want to emphasize this mostly does not mean people can't use pure PQ. We're rapidly moving towards a world where people can register code points without a standard. This is certainly true for TLS. So the question is not like whether you can use it. The question is what IETF is going to recommend. And so I guess I do have some feelings about what we ought to do, but my real feeling is that we should make it that like these protocols are all like very similar in terms of concept, and I don't see any good reason why Cozy should like do one thing and like TLS should do another. And so I guess I think it'd be good to have a discussion about what we think good practice would be, and then try to like do that across the area rather than kind of make individualized decisions in each working group. So that's really what I'm advocating for. And I think I want to get out of the off the screen here, Paul. I just want to tee this up, and like I think I can be part of the mic line like everybody else if I have opinions.
Hey, Sean Turner, TLS Working Group co-chair. Even in the stuff that I believe that Deirdre was proposing, it was informational, and there was no, as I understand it, there was no actual request to try to change the mandatory to implement in TLS. So, I mean, if we're trying to figure out what it recommends, i.e. as in what we're going to make mandatory to implement, you could still standardize, put things on standard track. It's just not mandatory to implement. So there is that. But I think the important point is the middle one there. It says most seek and register a code point without a standard. Is that the minute the FIPS is done, they can get in IPsec, TLS, and elsewhere, you can get a code point. And then later you can make the thing a standard. We can make it an RFC, and then we can decide what track it's on if anybody cares. Like that can all be done. So I don't think the world's not ending. Like we don't have to like change our process to get this thing ready to go by like September 1st. But I think the idea that if you had an RFC that was standards track that specified a code point, that's okay too, because the mandatory to implement in the protocol is not being proposed to being changed. Thanks.
Hi, this is Hannes. I thought I heard that in COSE and HOSE we don't have the hybrid algorithms, and that's not, at least there are proposals for the hybrid incorporating into HKB or using with HBKE. And there's one issue that relates to what you just said, Sean, the question of like X-Wing and co. There you have to, unfortunately, pick one way to combine the output of the traditional algorithm and the post-quantum crypto algorithm in some way. And the question is there, what approach should we use? You have to select something in the document. And so it's not purely informational or...
I'm sorry, Sean Schneider again. The point I was making was about the pure PQ approach, the one that Deirdre was talking about. The combiner thing, yeah, that's all beyond me.
On the, should we have a single approach that's unified across IETF protocols? I don't really agree, because some of the chat has touched on this, that some places can afford to, TOS 1.3 can get away with a lot of things that other protocols might not be able to do, because the TLS 1.3 key schedule is hashing in the entire handshake transcript, which means we can do a chem combiner for hybrid that a lot of other protocols can't do without putting in a whole bunch of other work in other places of their protocol. So I don't think a one-size-fits-all can be done, even if the one-size-fits-all is just sort of do a hybrid chem combiner of some sort. Another problem with trying to achieve that is that a lot of people were probably going to be asking, how do I do a hybrid chem combiner or hybrid combiner of some sort? And they're going to be like, CFRG, please make a recommendation. CFRG is in no position currently to have a document ready for hybrid chem combiners for generic usage for months, if not years. Unfortunately, there was too much debate about this different positions to get something ready to go for people to start designing with anytime soon. So I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a bit bespoke, but not for like special little reasons. It's just the protocols are different and we don't have consistent guidance, and we're not going to have it soon. And then following up from that, there are protocols, or there are people who use protocols that will not be able to do a hybrid and then a PQ transition. And I think the general consensus of people who look at this stuff is that sitting on hybrid forever and ever is not the platonic ideal for our protocols. So having a PQ only solution for some of these things, especially for the key agreement stuff, signatures is a less pressing issue, and also it can be a bit more difficult to make them fit. But for key agreement, having a PQ only solution may be amenable for protocols that optionally want to be able to do PQ only and be able to just move to that and not think about it, especially if it makes them FIPS CNSA 2.0 compliant for those parties that care about that sort of thing.
Hi, Michael, NCSC. Glad to hear that there'll be kind of possible further discussions in TLS. The discussions there earlier in the week were really interesting. Agree with Deirdre that there are protocol-specific considerations, but on issues that come up all over the place, is PQIP a good place for that discussion?
Yeah, Martin Thompson. I'm going to disagree a little bit with what Deirdre said about the protocols that cannot manage a transition away from a particular cipher suite. Any protocol that cannot transition away from a cipher suite that is known to be broken is broken. And so we should probably try to avoid specifying those. But the thing I wanted to get up to say was that I think there's one thing that Eka missed on his slide here, which is that I don't think we need an a la carte combiner involved in this process. I think we've done reasonably well with the sort of bespoke pairings of classical and PQ key exchange, at least. I think the signature side of things is, so the point is, we should not define protocols that have a generic bucket for this will take any classic chem and this will take any PQ chem and we'll just combine them in. We're doing reasonably well with just defining this is a chem and this is a hybrid chem. And I think that would be a recommendation that we could make more generally, which is to say that you make a combined chem that fits within the protocol and treat it as a single unit.
Yeah, so, Martin said, unsurprisingly, some of the things I would have said. Martin, I 100% agree with you, not the a la carte thing. It might be the case that inside CFRG, they have some a la carte mechanisms they use to develop the hybrids, but what they have to deliver to us is algorithms which are combined in an appropriate fashion. And as far as we know, they're chems. I think, I guess I feel like this question about like, TLS versus everything else, a bit of distraction. It is true that TLS has a particular, key schedule that makes it like potentially less sensitive than other protocols. And thus able to potentially use like a somewhat weaker, a chem with somewhat weaker guarantees. But I mean, maybe I misunderstood the situation, but it seems to me that it is possible for CFRG to deliver us chems with strong guarantees that will be suitable for both TLS and for other protocols. And that is what we should ask them to deliver for us. And if we happen to decide that it's worth taking the optimization for TLS in the short term or even the long term, that's fine. But that we should attempt to have CFRG to give us primitives that are safe for widespread use, and do not necessarily rely on the sort of specific properties of TLS. If it's not possible to provide a chem that has that property, say for COSE, using a hybrid, I'd like to understand why, because it seems unfortunate. I'm also not really persuaded by this argument about like they can only make one transition. I know people don't want to make two transitions, but that's the same as can't. And if they can't, then I think, as Martin says, we have much bigger problems.
Mike Ellsworth. I have 2 points. One is to respond to Martin, and one is to make a process suggestion. So responding to Martin, I don't think anyone is suggesting totally a la carte combiners. I think that's a side discussion. I think we're wasting air debating against a null argument. Me 3 years ago was advocating for that, but me today is not anymore. Also, just to be clear, me today has a CFRG draft that looks a bit like it might be that. It's not intending, the CFRG draft for generic combiners is meant to centralize cryptographic analysis, not to be implemented directly. It's meant to be instantiated and then spit out concrete pairs. So I just want to clear up that I don't believe anyone is actually proposing a la carte combiners. Let's not waste energy arguing against it. We're all on the same page. And then the process suggestion I was going to make is to move quickly. I think there's actually only a small number of authors that are behind all these chem combiner drafts. There's maybe 12 people in the IETF who are authoring all these various drafts across work groups. Maybe the ADs could just force us all to work together, and then we don't need a big centralizing mechanism.
I am volunteering to help with the CFRG research area on hybrid chems, but that's over in CFRG. So I'm around if that is a thing that the SEC area chairs want to do. I want to clarify that when I'm saying some users of protocols that the IETF maintains will probably only be able to do a PQ migration, whether that's hybrid or PQ only. I'm not talking about the protocol making it hard or difficult for someone to move from traditional to hybrid or traditional to PQ or from hybrid to PQ. I'm talking about the real world costs of people who have things deployed and having to be either forced by regulation or compliance to move, and the fact that they probably will not move again after they have gotten something deployed that means that they are compliant and they have checked that box. It's not about the protocols themselves, it's about the real world constraints of people who use the protocols. And so I'm trying to, if we think, and I think a lot of us who look at the research for these PQ primitives are, that generally moving to them eventually as a purely PQ only CAM or a PQ only signature solution eventually would be good for people, period, as an option. I think that should be made available and written down and looked at as a serious possibility so that the people who can and will need to make that migration eventually can do it, as opposed to telling everyone, well, you have to go to hybrid first, and why can't you move from hybrid to PQ later? Because I think there are a significant number of people in the world who may not be able to do that, and it's not because of the protocol's faults. It's because of other forces in the world.
Hey, Sean Turner again. One of the things that I think is going to happen in the real world is if we don't do pure, the pure option, I think some other SDO is going to say, well, we want that. TLS, you're not really very responsive to us. What's up with that? I think we've become a victim of our own success. And I'm 3GPP is going to be like, oh, in our, use case where we rely on TLS, we want pure PQ. We don't want to do hybrid. We want one of those. And I guess they can get one in the whole 9 yards, but it would be better if we were actually like responsive to the wider community that actually needs to support these things. So there's that too.
Paul Hoffman wearing my DNS sec hat. I hear the word signature mentioned about once every 42 times in this discussion. I'm sort of surprised because I've also heard TLS people say, we're going to need to do this for the TLS signatures later as well and such like that. I don't propose that signatures, that hybrid signatures be on the exact same footing as hybrid chems, but ignoring them is simply going to make, when we do hybrid signatures, a lot more difficult, because we will then have some protocols that say, well, we're hybrid this way, but we're going to pure this way. And here in between is when we think about signatures. And so which way do we go and such like that. So I would ask people, even though the need for chems is much greater than the need for post-quantum signatures, just to be thinking about actively, just not as actively as the chems. Thanks.
Yeah, I certainly think it's worth thinking as signatures. I was just trying to play an easy mode here, from the theory that maybe we can come to consensus on this.
Get myself off of mute. So I will say that transition from algorithm to algorithm over a real system takes a lot longer than you all think. The move from SHA-1 to SHA-2 within the DoD, and that's within the certificate management systems, within SMIME, within TLS, took a solid 10 to 15 years. We were late deprecating that by a long time. And that's because the installed base takes so long, so long to update. That's the problem. So DoD can't make two transitions like that, because US DoD this is, because they just can't make the infrastructure changes. They probably can't bear the performance, the bandwidth, or anything else for hybrid. So I'd rather move them once to post-quantum. Not that I'm retired, right? I'm not doing this anymore. I would, but it's better to move them once to a post-quantum algorithm than to than to figure out how to deal with the bandwidth and the performance issues of hybrid.
Scott Fleur, my tracker is down. About bandwidth, Kyber or ML Chem takes up about 800 bytes. The ACDH can take up 32. Are we actually complaining about those 32 extra bytes? I'm sorry.
So it's more than that, though, right, Scott? I mean, eventually you're going to move the signatures too. Is that true for the signatures as well? And it would be true. Hybrid signatures are going to be big, correct?
A post-quantum certificate, at least the ones we have right now, are big. A classical signature of ECDSA would be 64 bytes.
But,
so again,
post-quantum signature would be big.
What?
Right. Post-quantum signature would be big.
Yes, yes, the ones we have.
So I agree that the key exchange has to happen first, right? That's protection of data in the long term. But there are people that say that we need to move signatures now as well. And there you do have a bandwidth.
Yeah, I don't see how doing hybrid really increases bandwidth that much in proportion to how much the post-quantum signature is and public keys are right now.
But regardless, the installed base changes are going to take a decade at least.
I most likely agree. But it's and I'm just saying that bandwidth is actually a very minor consideration.
John Bradley. Hi, Deb. I want to reiterate Deb's concerns about people's practical ability to migrate. One of my job's responsibilities at the GSA back in the day was migrating people from SHA-1 to SHA-2. And that took similar amount of time and pain. And it's not just the size of the signature. You know, some of us have to live with embedded systems, and it's also the amount of processing time. And yes, post-quantum is always more than at least some of the non-post-quantum, though brain pool can also suck your soul dry. We have to, in some of these applications, especially for things that we need to get FIPS 140 certified, we have to start a process now for something that's going to actually come out the other end in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, that's just the reality. Thank your lucky stars if you don't have to go through FIPS certification. But, the processing power, all of that, I think we should at least have an option, especially on signatures, to do a post-quantum only signature so that we can at least target that. So for one of the main things I work on, WebAuthn, we actually have the ability to switch between algorithms quite quickly. People can be using a P384 signature. If there's concern that it's broken, the RP can say, re-register with the post-quantum algorithm. We don't have to, so we can dynamically switch in the protocol on a fairly short notice as long as we get it built into the hardware in advance. So the advantage of doing a hybrid signature, so that if P256 is broken, it still has some robustness. The more practical thing is to just re-register people's credentials with the pure post-quantum. So I think that ignoring pure post-quantum is probably a mistake.
I'm going to try to sort of pick up on the points Scott was making a few minutes ago. I take so it is like definitely true that like the performance both in size and sometimes in CPU is worse for hybrid for hybrid than classical. But the relevant point, the point Scott is making, I think, is that the performance for hybrid is very, very similar to the performance for classical. And so, sorry, very much similar to the performance for PQ. And so the argument, and so it's like, yeah, it's a giant pain to transition to either PQ or hybrid. But like from a performance standpoint, staying in hybrid in perpetuity is actually not that big a deal compared to using pure PQ. And so maybe there are other reasons to not do hybrid in perpetuity, but like the fact that it's like got too much bandwidth consumption or too much CPU is not really a very strong argument because, as I say, it's not really that much worse than just doing pure PQ.
Mike Ellsworth, same thing Ecker just said, but with data. If you look at the LAMPS presentation from composite signatures, there's a slide in there. We constructed a bunch of composite and pure ML DSA certificates, and adding the ECDSAs expanded the certificate by between 3% and 4%. Adding RSA expanded the certificates by about 14%. So there is data on that size in the LAMPS presentation.
I'm Quinn Dang at NIST. We are fine with both options, hybrid or pure PQ. I think I understand the reason, or one of the reasons why people wanted to do a pure PQ. So let's imagine we live in the quantum world, right? And ACC are broken. And do we want people to keep running ACC into the system like forever in TOS for trillions of connections year by year, wasting a ton of energy for nothing in that world? So at least there's a reason why somebody would not want that in that world.
Mike Perrock here. Just want to make clear, and I think it's been stated pretty well, but I don't think we should be looking at the chem and HPKE side of things the same way as signatures. A lot of the data that I deal with on the signature side has to be extremely long-lived and has to deal with like regulatory and judicial discovery and all sorts of fun stuff like that. You know, how did I know this wasn't tampered with? Very small overhead for us to do detached COSE, you know, sign one on you know, those docs into, you know, twice, right? Once legacy, once with PQ, right? And just to make sure we're covered for the short term. But I don't really want to start mixing and blending things on the signature side and introduce unknown properties that are completely unexpected. It's just much cleaner to do 2 SIGs and be done with it.
Okay. So obviously, this is a great topic for discussion on the SAAG list to continue. So I just wanted to leave some time for open mic in case people have something to say, and I will hijack the first item myself. I know that Radius has a document TLS PSK that they would really like some extra views for. So I am looking for 2 or 3 volunteers. I see Hannes is one. Okay, going once, going twice. Sean, okay, and Dan. Okay, thank you very much. You'll be noted in the minutes and hunted down.
So not open mic, but with the last thing that you said about the last presentation, you said this would be a great discussion to have on SAAG. Should we have it in parallel on PQIP? Should we have it only on one or the other? Could the security area directors pick one? Not that it's going to last. I know that people will do one or the other, but to give us in PQIP some guidance about whether we should be throwing these discussions over to SAAG or whether you want to throw them over to us. And I'm not saying choose now, but
Well,
before we have too much duplicate discussion, please
That's
pick
fair.
where would be best.
That's fair. So before you walk away, so you think this discussion is fully in scope for PQIP?
It's in scope because our scope allows discussion of post-quantum use in the protocols we're talking about.
Okay, then let's have it there. Fine
We
with me.
can, but like you say, there certainly is more energy right here, right now in SAAG than there has been in PQIP. So please, you guys think about it and let us know. I'm not saying it should be in PQIP. I just don't want us in PQIP to go, oh, look, there's a new discussion. Does this match what was in SAAG or not?
Right.
Maybe this is PQIP-y or not. You know, like you guys decide and then pick. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Hi, this is Alan. Yeah, this post-quantum stuff is great. Can we talk about MD5? Right? Let's be realistic. You know, TLS is great. It's up and coming for Radius, but Radius still depends on MD5. Everyone uses it in various places. It will be going away with extreme prejudice. So let me just be very clear on that. If you're shipping Radius with MD5, it will explode very, very soon. And part of this work is we're doing the TLS document to get everyone to upgrade. So MD5 is great, right? Let's kill it.
Paul, can I jump you in line to say this is a perfect example of transition or lack thereof, right?
Paul, are you still in the queue? So then the queue is empty. Anything else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, enjoy your koalas.
Yes, yes.